Hello everyone, this is Professor Uriarte. I am beginning the videos that we're going to use to help us macro classes get through the second half of the semester a little more quickly so we can all get out of here at the appointed time, May 7th, I think is the last day of classes. Of course, everyone realizes that we need to make up time for the snow cancellations that occurred in January and February. We've lost, in some cases, 3 or 4 sessions. Not all of the macro groups, and I have 4, not all of you have missed the same number of classes, so it makes it a little tricky to design these videos, but the idea basically is this. We're going to make up videos that will replace class sessions that have been originally scheduled for the second part of the course. And I'll be posting them on YouTube. You'll have access to them. I'll tell you exactly where they fit in terms of the sequence of things, the sequence of the course, and that will replace a class session. As I mentioned, there's one class that needs to make up 4 videos, 4 sessions. There's one group that only needs to make up 1. But whatever that may be, all these videos will be posted on YouTube, and we'll work from there. I'm learning as I do this. I've never done anything like this. Not necessarily perfectly comfortable in front of the camera, but we'll learn and we'll get through it. I figure a particular video, any one video, will not really require an hour and 20 minutes of time the way a normal class would. I'm figuring about half that, maybe 40 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, an hour at the most. Because in a class session, of course, there's a lot of give and take. In the video, I'm just going to present something and go with it, and hopefully it'll be clear to you. Obviously, we can use a following session to review something that's been in a video. So without further ado, the first video I want to do is for those, particularly in my Monday, Wednesday groups, or some kind of Wednesday group, that those groups have been hurt pretty hard. And a couple of you then need to have a video pretty close immediately after break. In other words, you actually need a video for a topic that's before the second test. And incidentally, I've revised the lecture schedule that I originally posted on Campus Cruiser in our shared files, and that's posted now on Campus Cruiser. So as I'm taping these videos, the lecture schedule that's relevant is the one that's for your class and called revised. You'll see it in shared files for your class, for your section. Yeah, so back to the original point, there's a Monday, Thursday group and a Monday, Wednesday group that needs to see a lesson on unemployment. And that's before the second test. It's the last topic before the second test. Got to get it in there. You'll have your second test. I'll grade it. There'll be more videos to follow. So let's get into unemployment. It's rather straightforward. It's not real difficult material. There's a lot of definitions, but there's some conceptual things that bear some explanation. I'll go right into it. All right. Here's the main point. Unemployment is not what you think it is. Or maybe better said, it's more than you think it is. To an economist, unemployment has to have 3 criteria, 3 aspects in place, or else a person's not really unemployed. Obviously, someone who's out of work, right, is someone unemployed. But that doesn't mean he's statistically unemployed. That doesn't mean the Bureau of Labor Statistics is going to count him. There's 2 other criteria. To an economist, someone who's unemployed must be looking for work. They have to be an active participant in the labor market. One group of active workers are those employed. Another group of active workers are those who are unemployed. But those unemployed aren't merely out of work, they have to be seeking. They got to be searching, hitting the pavement in everyday language. And then finally, okay, there has to be this certain kind of availability. Availability. A person's got to be available for work. I put that in quotations because what it really means is you have to be willing to accept the going rate, the going wage, the equilibrium wage that's appropriate for you and your skills and the state of the economy, the demand for labor, the supply of labor. You'll see. Willing to accept the going rate, wage. All right, so I'm trying to highlight these things, and I want to explain the reason and the basis and the intuition for having these three criteria as the necessary conditions for a person being counted as unemployed. And again, these definitions follow the economic research conducted by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's the criteria they use so that people are properly counted and we get a proper picture of labor markets. I'm going to flip the page and we're going to look at this a little more in detail. To understand the definition, all aspects of the definition of unemployed, you have to understand how economists conceive labor markets. To a large extent, labor involves choice. And the way economists set it up, it's a choice between working or not working. And this becomes the basis for our understanding of the labor market. The labor market is like other markets. There's a price, and the price in labor markets is a wage. Then there's a quantity of labor. For simplicity's sake, we're going to treat this labor not in terms of time, which is normal, but just in terms of workers themselves. Like any market, there's a supply of workers, and then there's a demand. So like any market, there is an equilibrium where supply and demand meet. Now this is a resource market, so you should realize that things are going to be a little different than they would be in a product market. Most importantly, those supplying the labor are the households. In a product market, households are creating the demand for products and services. The position here is reversed. Households offer, provide their work talents, experience, expertise, credentials, whatever. Energy, time, most especially. Households provide that to the labor market. So logically then, firms create the demand. Firms create the demand for labor. Okay? And the way we're going to read this to help us understand the definition of unemployed is to pretend that there's a Mr. 1 here, there's a Mr. 2 here, there's a Mr. 3 here, etc., all the way to the equilibrium quantity of workers hired. We'll call that 100. We'll pretend that the going wage in this market is $10. Just to use an easy figure. All right? The way we're supposed to read this is sort of like this. Say this is Mr. Well, let's say it's Mr. 3. Mr. 3 is someone who likes to work a whole lot. How do I know that? I go up to find his position on the supply curve. And I take note, I draw a line straight over to the price axis, the wage axis actually, and I find he's so enamored with work that he's willing to work for $4. $4 is enough to get him motivated, up in the morning, out the door, headed to his employed position. That's as far as Mr. 3 goes. Mr. 23, he wants a little more. He wants, let's see, looks like it's $5. $5. $5 is enough to get this guy hired, to get this guy motivated, up in the morning, out the door. All right, so there's Mr. 1, Mr. 3, Mr. 23. You notice that they require less than the going wage. What's going to happen if the level of demand supports a wage of 10? Well, these guys are obviously going to get hired. They feel sufficient incentive at a $10 wage to set their alarm clock and go. The same is true for Mr. 50. The same is true for Mr. 75. All these people are hired because they're willing to take wages either at or below the going wage. There it is, the going rate in this market. All right, so how many people in total get hired? Well, we notice Mr. 100. He's at the equilibrium position. How much does Mr. 100 want to get him to set his alarm clock, up and out in the morning? Straight up. There's his connection to the supply line. Straight over to the left, $10. $10 is enough to get him out the door. What does the market bear? $10. So he's hired. He's hired too. How many workers are hired in this pretend labor market? 100 workers. Now what about Mr. 101? Let's see what color I'll use for him. I'll use brown. Mr. 101, he's right here, right next to Mr. 100. Mr. 101, how much does he require to get himself up and out each morning? There's his spot on the supply curve. To the left, oh, he wants more than 10. He wants 11. He wants 11. He requires 11. That's the number that motivates him. But the market's demand, the market conditions, only bear a $10 wage. So you know what he's going to say? I don't want to work for that price. I don't want to work for 10. I want to work for 11. All right, it's a free world. It's his free choice. Economists would say he's choosing leisure over working. Leisure over labor. So, guess what? He's out of work. And maybe in normal, everyday conversation, we'd say he's unemployed. But to economists, he's actually in a different category. I mean, of course he's out of work. But wait, is he really available? The market's ready for him. The market's active. It bears $10. He doesn't want that. He's making himself unavailable. He's not really willing to work at the going rate. So you know what? We're not even going to count him. He is not really unemployed for statistical purposes. He just is choosing his leisure, which of course is his right to do. So it's pretty clear that there's more than meets the eye to this whole matter of unemployment than simply being out of work. Okay? the way we're going to interpret unemployed, the requirements for the Bureau of Labor Statistics, who measures this unemployment month to month, that rate, the way we're going to count it and conceive of it is to include three necessary conditions, three criteria, as we mentioned before: out of work, seeking, and willing to take the going wage. All right? So there are people that sort of take themselves out of the active labor force, and that's the point. That's the crucial separation or divergence between the everyday understanding of the word unemployed and the technical understanding. I'm going to put a pause on here and set things up a little different, change the page here, and then pick up the next aspect of the topic. Okay? Okay, we're back. Here's the thing. Number one thing. Unemployment in economics is different than it is in everyday conversation. We conceive it as needing or requiring three conditions: out of work, seeking employment, and then willing to accept the going wage, making yourself truly available for the labor market. If those three things aren't in place, it turns out the Bureau of Labor Statistics is not going to count you as unemployed. I want to take a step back, at least conceptually, to try to explain the justification for this. Unemployment is an important measure revealing the health of the economy. In good economic times, we will typically see an unemployment rate of about 4 or 5% in the United States. We call that a frictional rate of unemployment. If we see episodes, 4-month period, 6-month period, a year, 2 years, where unemployment is 7, 8, 9%, we know, of course, we're having a bad recession that's affecting labor markets. And then we'll have a sense as well of when the economy is actually starting to improve, truly improve, for all sectors of the economy, when the unemployment rate starts to recede to levels that are near the frictional rate, 4 or 5%. Incidentally, presently we're like around 7%, mid-sevens. This is as of March 2014. Before the big recession in 2007, 2008, 2007 our unemployment rate was probably around 4%. 2008, around 4%. And then within a year's time, we're at 8 and 9%. Didn't quite touch 10% unemployment levels in this recession. At the same time, while the economy's improved since about 2010, it's not as though the rate has fallen all the way down to indicate a full recovery. So that's why this is important. This is why this statistic is important to us. Okay. But the step back we're going to take is to try to get the whole framework of how the economists approach the problem of unemployment and justify why we're defining it this way. So, there's a lot of people in the United States. There's like 300 million people. There's probably like 308 now. But we'll just call it 300 million, all right? U.S. population, 300 million. Now, there's no way we can expect every human being in the 300 million people of us to actually be working. I mean, that's impossible. I mean, some people literally just arrived. They're a week old, they're a month old, they're 3 years old, or what have you. We don't expect them to be working. In other words, there's a large group of people that common sense tells us they're not going to be in the labor force. They're not active members. All right? So here's what the Bureau thinks. Here's the approach. Well, there's going to be a large group we're just not going to even count.